All right, digital strategy, goal analysis. So we've talked about things like dealing with our inside issues and external issues and things that we have to deal with that, all of that. But now what I really want to focus on is this whole idea of goals. And one of the major challenges that a lot of people have in business in general is the fact that they don't set goals. So they don't even think about this concept of goals, especially when it comes to digital strategy, marketing, those kind of things. And so ideally, what we want to do in goal analysis is we want to make a determination of what some of our business goals are, and then begin to break those things down by what's going to help us reach those particular goals, okay? And so when we're looking at this, there's several categories that we have to think about, specifically in the marketing arena. The first thing we have to think about is we have to think about our digital target audience. Our digital target audience. Now, digital target audience in the digital strategy is virtually the same thing in any marketing strategy as a target market, right? It's this whole idea of who is the person that is most likely to buy from us, right? And so when we think about digital target audience, there are really several categories that we have to ask ourselves questions in. The first category is consumer needs. Consumer needs. In other words, what needs are actually filled by your product or service, right? Now, we can get into the discussion of wants versus needs and so on and so forth, and some companies provide wants and some companies provide for needs, right? But ultimately, why is it that a person would utilize your product or service? That's the big question, right? So if you're dealing with electrical components, for example, then why do they need your product or service? Well, electrical breakdowns, regular maintenance. There's several reasons we could look at why it is that a person has to fill those needs. The second question we have to ask ourselves, so the first question is what needs are filled? The second question, though, really is, are you the only one that can fill this need? Now, for 99.999% of the companies, the answer to that is no, right? There's virtually competition in virtually every market, right? And so we have to ask a follow-up question to that when the answer is no. And the question is if you're not the only one that can fill those needs, what makes you different, right? And so this idea here is that success is often found in the differences, not the similarities, right? Success is often found in the differences, not the similarities. Meaning, if I need to go and get some groceries, I can go to Walmart, I can go to Target, I can go to Publix, Piggly Wiggly, Winn-Dixie, depending on where you're located, Kroger. I can go to all these different places and buy groceries, correct? Mm-hmm. What's the difference between these places?
A little bit of the experience. Publix kind of stands out to me.
Publix stands out from a customer service experience standpoint, right?
Yeah, groceries.
Everybody's got groceries. You can go buy milk at any of these places. You can buy bread, eggs, meat, canned goods at any of these places. But when we look at them, there are differences in these particular organizations, and the key to the reason why people frequent these organizations is because of those differences, right? It's not just a matter of location of grocery store, because there's lots of people that will pass up one to get to another, right? So that's the question you have to ask yourself, is what makes you different? The second area that we have to look at is purchasing power. Purchasing power. Now, purchasing power, it refers to the idea of potential purchasing power. In other words, what you have to know is how much a person is actually willing to spend and how often they're willing to spend it. Right? So one of the, again, challenges as a business owner is we often forget that there's a percentage of people that may not be able to buy right now. Right? It's one of those things that I've talked about in the past is that only 3% of your target market is in buying mode at any given point. 30% will never buy from you for whatever reason. They don't like your picture. They don't like your colors. They don't like whatever. But that also leaves 67% that are in some phase of the process. It's just not a not right now. And so when we look at these things, when someone is drawn to a product or they're drawn to a service, then they're going to do what it takes to be able to get it. It's one of the reasons why I've said for years that price is not the problem, right? I hear that as an excuse from a lot of companies. Well, our competitors charge less than we do. So what? Perception of value creates value. The problem is that if your price is higher than someone else's, the perception of value is not different. That's where those differences in things comes in, right? And so when we look at purchasing power, there are a few questions we have to ask ourselves. First is how wide is the market willing to open their wallet for your products or services? How wide are they willing to open their wallet? The second question is how often are they willing to open their wallet? And the third question we have to ask ourselves is, will this increase, this wallet opening, is this going to increase in the future? Right? So again, going back to our electrical components example. Electrical components wear out over time, right? So a new machine today is not going to be a new machine 10 years from now. So as machines and things age, then over time, more replacement parts, more maintenance needs to be done. These kinds of things need to happen, right? And so as these things begin to happen, then the need for those products actually increases. It's kind of like a bell curve, right? So the need for the products begins to increase, but then eventually if the need for those products increases to a certain point, then it becomes more advantageous to begin to replace, right? So the components themselves for a period of time are less necessary. It's kind of like a car, right? We keep a car for a number of years, right? Eventually we got to start doing maintenance. You got to replace brakes, and you got to replace rotors, right? We got to do oil changes. We got to do those kinds of things. But then as the car begins to age more and more and more, then you start getting, the water pump's going out. Oh man, now, we got to do some belts. Okay, not a big deal. Alternator goes out, right? And then as it begins to age more and more, then we have to start looking at, suspension's bad, got to replace the suspension. Now we've got to replace the transmission. Well, needs a new engine, right? And so, again, there's that point at which it becomes more advantageous to say, okay, I'm going to stop spending money on this one and buy another one, right? And so that's what we're looking at with this concept of purchasing power. It's how wide are they willing to open their wallets? How often are they willing to open their wallets? And will this increase in the future? And so in some businesses, by the way, some businesses really don't have much of an opportunity to increase, right? Especially a lot of the businesses that are commodity-based businesses, okay? Toilet paper, for example. Everybody uses it. Well, most everybody uses it. If you don't use it, you're nasty and go get some, right? But everybody uses it in essence. And so that being said, the number of people actually purchasing toilet paper, what's the likelihood that that's going to increase significantly in the United States over the next several years?
As population increases.
Population increases, fine. People are born, people die. Okay? So you have some population increases, but as far as significant market increases for that particular product, not really a lot. So those particular organizations that manufacture that product, what do they have to do? What's the difference? So it's a focus on market share increase as opposed to an actual market increase, right? See the difference? So the third thing that we have to look at is social clout. Social clout. Social clout is an important aspect in today's day and age. Okay? This question really is who has the largest social network and purchasing power, right? It goes back to one of our clients the other day. He's constantly into money-making schemes and this, that, and the other. And so he's been asking me about this one deal, right? And he wants me to be involved in it. And you know, I'm trying to be polite for the most part, but you know, the answer is heck no. But the thing is that what he's looking at is actually an investment opportunity, because a lot of people, whether you know or not, I'm an investor. I mean, that's the main thing that I do. I invest in businesses in the market and real estate and so on and so forth. And so everything else that I do or have really comes out of that. And so with this, what he had this idea for was effectively like an investing club, where people put in money and then I invest the way that I invest their money, and then they get a return off this money. And you know, there's lots of regulations and licensing and all that kind of stuff that goes along with this mess, and I'm not interested. But he was talking about people putting in like $1,000, right? And I'm like, what's that look like? You know, from a purchasing power aspect, what's $1,000 really going to do? If I'm the one managing it and I have to make a profit off that, what's $1,000 really going to do for me? By the way, the cap on what I would get out of that $1,000 would be maybe $30 a year, right? What's it really going to do for me? Now, add some more zeros and make it $1 million, right? Now it looks like a better idea, right? But that goes into that purchasing power. Now, social clout goes back into who has the largest social network purchasing power, but also persuasion power, right? Social clout is about persuasion power. And so this is where we have to start thinking big to say it's not about who you know, right? It's about who has persuasion power. So who are the big dogs in the area that we can talk to? So some questions we have to ask ourselves is, you know, who within our target market has the largest social networks? Who of these people have the most persuasion power? And by the way, just because you have a large social network doesn't necessarily mean you have persuasion power. Okay? It's easy to get friends on Facebook. You basically click a button, and at the end of the day, somebody says yes or no. Most people say yes. Very rarely do people decline friend requests on Facebook, as an example. It doesn't mean you know that person. It doesn't mean you have any influence with those people whatsoever. What we're talking about is influencers, right? And so we have to ask that question, do these people have the potential to influence others? And that's really part of our goal setting, and part of our strategy is the influencers in our market that have the ability to actually refer things to us. Oddly enough, in our marketing firm, we've been picking up a lot of business lately, a lot of new clients, more than usual, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that many of them are referred by one organization that really has buy-in into what we do and how we do it, and has been talking us up very well, right? So these are the things that we have to think about: consumer needs, purchasing power, and social clout. Now, that's our digital target audience. Next is the digital goals, right? It's our digital goals. And in digital goals, there are two types of goals. Okay? So we have branding goals and business goals. This is an area where lots of people make mistakes, because many businesses just focus on who's the next customer. Let's get the next lead. We need more leads. We need more customers. We need more leads. We need more customers. And they forget that there's more than one aspect of your business. You have the business, but you also have the branding issue. And so branding in effect is, what effect do you want to have on your market, right? What do you need your product and marketing to convey? What do these people need to feel? Do they need to feel angry? Do they need to feel vulnerable? Do they need to feel opportunity, right? And all of these things are very important because of how very specific we can get with marketing these days. And so one of the beauties of marketing is we have the ability to create emotions if we choose to do so. And so the question we have to ask ourselves is, what effects do we want our brand to have on customers and potential customers' minds? And then that leads us into 3 sub-goals. Right? Branding, it's about emotion. Business is about action, right? So let me write that down right here. Emotion and action. Branding with the sub-goals. The first sub-goal is awareness. Awareness is about being seen. You lose 100% of the business from people that don't know you exist. It's the awareness, it's how are you getting your name out there, right? People have to be aware of you before they can do business with you. The second is relationship. This is about personalization. Relationship is about the relationship that you have with the customers, and it's also about the relationship that you build with potential customers. The third is community. Community is more about building that tribe of people that they know you, like you, trust you, they agree with you, they're going to talk about you, they know your focus, and they understand if you need to shift your focus. Matter of fact, I was actually reading on a blog earlier today, one of the vendors that we do business with, they're dropping 90% of the products that they offer. And oh my goodness, there were 200 something comments, and I spent nearly an hour reading all these comments. 200 something comments. There were lots of upset people about this kind of stuff, And I actually shot a message over to the CEO of the company. I said, hey, the biggest problem that you have right now is not the fact that you're dropping 90% of your products. The biggest problem that you have right now is that you haven't communicated the vision for the future effectively, so people don't understand. They just see that you're dropping these particular products, and they don't know where you're going from here, right? They can only guess at what's happening with these things. And so you're harming your community. And it's been a very loyal community for lots of time. So I said, you're disrupting the loyalty, right? So when you're looking into the branding side of things, then you have to look at what's your current focus, right? How is your awareness doing? How's your relationship doing? What are you doing to build community and all these things? Because the question becomes is, how do we want people to feel, right? It's the emotional connection. Business goals are more about action, right? And so that has sub-goals. The new business being the first. New business sub-goal, it's all about just that. It's about picking up brand new customers. What are you doing to get brand new customers that have never done business with you before? Unfortunately, many businesses focus so much on new business that they completely forget that they may have a current customer base that would buy more from them because they don't do anything about it. We have repeat business, which is someone purchasing The same thing again. Back to our electrical components example, someone bought a breaker. At some point, they're going to need another one. Are they going to buy it from you? That becomes the real question. I know one of the things that we dealt with in doing a lot of construction around here is, where do we go? We have choices. We can go to Home Depot and buy things. We can go to Lowe's and buy things. Well, we went to Lowe's and bought a lot of the things that we needed. A lot of it had to do with the convenience of it, but a lot of it also had to do with the fact that Lowe's, it just seems like it kept popping up, right? And so it was in our mind. Is that anything against Home Depot? No, it's not. I like Home Depot. I like both of the stores, right? But it kind of goes back to that. What are you doing to earn repeat business from your current customer base? The final category in this sub-goal here is cross-sell business. The difference between repeat business and cross-sell business is fairly simple. Repeat business is selling the same thing to a different or to the same person again. Cross-sell business is selling something different to that same customer. So if you notice, actually 2 out of the 3 sub-goals in business strategy are actually getting more out of your current customer base. That's an important aspect. It's an important aspect because it's always more expensive to obtain a new customer than it is to retain a customer. Always more expensive to obtain than to retain. Okay? And you can do any kind of research that you want on this kind of stuff. I know one of our clients the other day, we were looking at cost to acquire. And their cost to acquire a new customer is about $1,500. But then you go to cost to retain a customer is actually about $150. So 10%. Right? Now this is obviously a high ticket business. They sell very expensive stuff. But cost to obtain versus cost to retain. So you think about these kind of sub goals. We want to say, okay, this person is buying a product over and over again, and this person is buying different products over and over again, right? That's the goals. And so what we have to do once we have these things defined is now we need to sit back and look at our goals and say, and let's make a chart, right? We have branding on our chart and business on our chart. And when we do this, we want to break it down. We have awareness. We have relationship. And we have community. We have new business. We have repeat business. And we have cross-sell business. And what we're ultimately looking for here is percentages. And we want to set our goals based on what we need this to be. For example, if I look at my branding and I say, you know what, one of the biggest problems that we have is more people need to be aware of us, right? If I need new customers, awareness is directly related to new business. Because I can't sell something to someone that doesn't know I exist. Right? So if I'm suffering from not having enough overall customers, then I need to put a larger focus on awareness and new business. Relationship and community are directly related to repeat business and cross-sell business. Community is indirectly related to new business. It's called referrals. Relationship is indirectly related to new business. So one of the biggest problems that we have is we see organizations that want to place ads all the time to generate new sales. They want to place ads to generate new sales. But the reality of it is they have a market that's not really aware of them at all. And so if I'm not aware of you at all and there's no trust there built because I'm aware of your brand, then what's the likelihood, even if I see an ad, that I'm going to do business with you?
Low, and even lower if you don't have feedback.
So it's low. It's very low. And as you said, lower without feedback. So what that means for a lot of organizations is we have to build awareness before we can focus on generating new business. Unfortunately, many businesses get themselves in a position where they're dying on the vine because they don't have enough leads and they feel like they don't have enough time to build awareness financially, right? This is why this stuff needs to be set as quickly as possible. This is something that also needs to be re-looked at on a yearly basis. This should be part of our annual marketing plan, right? Our annual strategy. And so I may say, if I'm a younger business, for example, and by younger business, I don't necessarily mean that you haven't been in business very long. By younger business, I mean you're younger to this concept of strategy in general. I may say I need to focus 35% on awareness because we don't have enough overall customers. I may need to focus 30% on new business. By the way, your overall total should be 100%. Well, that's 65%. That only leaves 35% for these other categories. But if I don't have a lot of customers currently, I don't need to put that much focus on repeat business and cross-sell business. I may drop 5 and 5 here. And because I know I don't have a community, I need to focus on building relationships before I can truly build a community, right? I may need to spend 20% here. And only 5% here. But these things change, right? So as I build new customers, as my awareness is going up, then the value can go down. As I'm getting more and more customers, maybe I need to focus a little less on new customers and focus more on the higher ROIs, which is generating more repeat business out of the existing customer base. Generating additional sales, offering different products and services to people that you know that might be interested in it. Amazon does a really good job about this, right? They do a great job. People that have bought this also have bought, right? That's a cross-sell strategy. You may also be interested in, right? That's a cross-sell strategy. Vistaprint. Upsell is selling a person higher on what they're already buying.
The bigger package.
Cross-sell is, so cross-sell is selling a different product. Upselling would be selling a bigger package of an existing product. So let's say, for example, I'm online and I'm looking at a 4-pack of toilet paper, just to use that example. Upselling would be selling me on a 24-pack instead of a 4-pack. Same product, just a higher quantity or higher dollar amount, right? That's upselling. Cross-selling would be like saying, okay, well, you know what, since you're buying toilet paper, you may also want to check out these wipes, you know? Yeah, I mean, you know, Boudreaux's butt cream, right? That's that whole idea there, you know. So it's that cross-sell is more about related products, and upsell is more about value of the product you're purchasing, right? And it kind of goes back to the whole idea of Sam's Club, Costco. Sam's Club and Costco are their upsell organizations. The entire organization, the design behind it is you're buying things in larger quantities, right? And so by buying things in larger quantities, you're getting an upsell just by walking in the door, right? So as opposed to a cross-sell, which would just maybe a related product. Sometimes people unsuccessfully try cross-sells on completely unrelated products. That would be like, as a marketing firm, a cross-sell, for example, as a marketing firm would be somebody calls us up and says, hey, we need a new website, right? And I sell them on reputation management, which is a good hand in hand with that website to actually get more traffic to that website, right? So that's a cross-sell. Make sense? So I can do more of those kind of things. But at the same time, As I build a deeper relationship with my existing customers, then that starts to go down, and I need to put a little more focus on community, right?
Relation would be, say, active campaign.
Relation could be, yeah, active campaign. Any of your email-based things are going to be great for a relationship. And we'll get into very soon what strategies actually work best for each of these areas. Okay, because that's ultimately what we're going to have to deal with. Is I need to know where my focus needs to be first, and then second, I need to figure out what strategies work best for these areas of focus, right? So it's one of the things. For example, new sell. People tend to focus on websites for new sell. It's the whole idea behind SEO is get people that are looking, push them to your website, and then sell them something. And a website actually is not all that great for new sales. It takes a lot more effort to generate new business. Website is not good for awareness. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's not all that good for awareness because a person has to be aware that you exist before they will ever come to your website, right? So getting search engine rankings and so on and so forth to get your website to the top of the list and all that, part of the goal of that is to generate awareness. The challenge for a lot of those things is it's done very poorly, and so oftentimes the people that actually see us are not necessarily those people that are our digital target audience. So we'll get into strategies very soon. The key I want you to understand with all of this is that you want to break it down, right? So I might need to say, if I'm a cleaning service, for example, you have an existing customer base, but as far as for generating new business, the vast majority of the population doesn't know you exist. If you don't spend time and effort on awareness, it makes it that much harder to generate new business. And by the way, all of these things don't have to be expensive strategies and expensive fixes and so on and so forth. We'll get into more details shortly about all that. Digital target audience, consumer needs, purchasing power, and social clout. But our goals, we need to have a good mix of both branding and business. Don't make the mistake of just focusing on new business, because ultimately that tends to be a very expensive mistake to make.